Good morning. All righty. So momentum is slowing, and we shall see if it begins to pull back here a bit. Didn't do it yesterday. It just stayed in a relatively narrow range. And so how do we read momentum? And of course, Master Trader, we do it without indicators. Just baffles me. All the indicators are out there. They even one called the momentum indicator. But it's just simply the ranges beginning to contract and candle bodies beginning to contract, and momentum increases when they expand. And from there, that's just one concept that you have to put in, whether the trend's up, down, or sideways, or where it's at. Now, right now, there's no resistance to the left here on the S&Ps. And so while momentum slowed yesterday, we'll see if it continues to slow today, or possibly, things could break under the slow and we get a little pullback going on here. And of course, we would say, well, pullback to where? Well, we've got a concept called minor support, which is this area here, which is in the same place of the real support, which is these overlapping bars where the momentum stalled on the way up. And we got the rising 20 MA there. So if it should begin to pull back, this would come up a little bit, and we'd see if it begins to hold in that area, and we get a turn at that point. You can see what we call the concept of these overlapping opens and closes are a base in a smaller time frame. Right? So in the MTS concepts and course, we cover all different types of price action and how to read it in the time frame being traded, as well as in multiple time frames. And this is one concept. Overlapping opens and closes is a base in a smaller time frame. And there you have it. So that's why as we look on the daily chart and we see that, we may not, when you learn the concept of a base, this doesn't jump out as being a base. However, in a smaller time frame, it is, and why this would be a point where buyers would step up. We'll see if that happens. Beginning of the day, we'll see whether this maybe turns into a red bar. I mean, as we look at patterns like this, where you get a big reversal, bullish price action at resistance, meaning, you got the topping tail. It didn't go down. It went up. Momentum is slowing. Historically, the next step in the process is that probably the stall turns into a retracement, which doesn't do any damage to the trend as long as it doesn't retrace too far down here. And this would be actually, the most bullish thing it could do after a move like this is chop sideways. But as the momentum slows, one of the things I said yesterday was, well, what is our first reference point of support? And that's a prior bar's low. So a move under yesterday's low, right, would violate at least some support, and because it's this basing action here, we'd see how far it goes. Now it shouldn't go down too far because you enter the void and then there's nothing to stop it. Last week we talked about this move up creating a void and the concept of creating support, and that's what happened. Once it pivoted, it retested and came back up again. So 4,300 going to be, and McGraw mentioned in the green room there that it's what's called a big call wall, which means there's a lot of open interest there in calls. And so that tends to be a sticking point, and it's a whole number. So, it makes sense after a move up like that, multiple concepts in alignment that would provide that as being a focal point of resistance. Let's take a look at spiders. As you can see, yesterday was that taxing my memory here of candlestick terminology, which we don't give much focus on, but I think it's called a shooting star, right? They have these fabulous names for candlesticks. And you've got this bar where it dipped down and you got a bottoming tail bar, but now it's after a multiple run to the upside and it gapped It gapped, came in, went back up again. Candle body small, momentum is slowing, and it's doing nothing here. It's just trading in the same, relatively same area. And you can see pretty much the same area, up a little bit. So if we were gapping lower this morning, that would be bearish confirmation of slowing momentum. It's not. It's just, doing nothing here. So we'll see if this should move lower or whether it just hangs up here today. Let's look at the Qs. There was no slowing in momentum there yesterday. It gapped up, and it stalled during the day for a bit, and then it went higher. So it didn't pull back. And I guess once it did that, buyers came in again. You can see it's up. This is a new week, but it's up multiple weeks in a row, and at some point it's going to pull back. That's what happens. That's what markets do, right? Now we've got a relatively wide range bar. I mean, it's really not wide relative to like this one, this gap reversal bar, which was bullish, or this one here, which is more of an igniting bar, but it's a little bit of a range expansion. And back to our factory work, where does prices stay today in relation to this wider green bar? Does it stay in the upper half? Does it pull back? Does it continue to push higher? So far, it's just hanging up here, 353 and a half. It was pretty close to where it was, maybe down a little bit. Nothing of any significance. Futures. What's the average credit you take? Someone asking me, what's the average credit you take? My approach to credit spreads, SPX, is everything starts with a chart. Right? Where's support? Where's resistance? We look at where there's big open interest at different strikes. And for example, just looking at this chart, I would see this being support. If there was big open interest there, I would just look at the options table and go below that and just look at, typically when it gets to be, the upper strike to be maybe around 50 cents or so, you're not going to go much lower than that. And then because it's, from my way of looking at it, I don't care how wide the strikes are, right? So the idea of, narrower strikes, being lower risk and all that, I have to approach, SPX and zero data expiration as being, I have to look at it as thinking there's just no possible way that that's going to happen. It's going to go down there. And I don't know the actual statistic, but it happens probably better than 95% of the time to be right. I mean, the ones I've done, I've only gotten tagged once. And you only need to get tagged once to feel the pain. So anyway, it's a very conservative way of approaching that particular strategy. All right, Qs hanging right at the top there. Right. Where's resistance? I don't know. There's nothing up above. So we wait to see, does it pivot? It did pivot. We've got two pivots here. In other words, we're getting a trading range, and this is a little area of support intraday. We've got a minor void, and sometimes I can't grab those things, and an area of support. So, for scalps, got a little void there if prices start to come in. And IWM. So there's a normal type of reaction yesterday after a move up into a resistance area and a stalling and momentum candle, where it moved down and found some support here. It came back up again. Now we'll see what it does. Where is it here? 231-ish. It's up a little bit. Basically nothing going on here this morning of any significance. Let's keep going here. Inside bar. It's broken the trend on the hourly. We got a pivot here. Maybe it rolls back over, for a more move lower. You got little spots of support along the way here. We'll see what happens. Or the Dow. Right. That was down a bunch yesterday. That led the way down right in the morning. The Dow and the Russell just started to drop right away, and NASDAQ went up. And that happens. So now we got this stall here. Do we get a red bar ignored or the next wave down today? Down to this area. And that's, the process of day-to-day trading is, okay, we've got a pattern. What's the trend? Where is it in relation to what's the left? What occurred? Where's support? Is there a void? Where's the next support? And so this big reversal that we see on all these weekly charts, same process. Whatever happens as far as any corrective action, it should stay in the upper half. And bonds are down here, no big deal. What's going on here? Let's take a look at the yield charts. Nothing going on. Downtrend, 5-year, kind of just hanging up here, right? I mentioned yesterday, set an alert on this. Nothing happened yesterday. But as far as the market liking or disliking what's happening, because we know it didn't like this going up, it's what caused the downdraft, set an alert on this. And everybody should have this data. Set an alert. If it's going up, it's a piece of information that says, hey, this could be something that rattles the market. If it's going down, this could be something at this moment in time that the market likes and it rallies, especially financials. Transports, right? It's not looking too good. Right? This is what a weak chart does. After the distribution phase and the breakdown, and you get a reversal, it can't rally much. And that's relative weakness, depending on what we compare it to. This is what Dan and I are going to be speaking about tomorrow. Relative strength, relative weakness, top-down approach. It's a great subject. When you in top-down approach, if you don't know what that means, is what's happening and in the broader markets, what's focused on in the media, what happens in what's going on in different sectors, which is showing strength, which is showing weakness. And then as strength or weakness occurs in broader markets, comparing that to other markets or sectors and individual stocks is how you narrow things down to where money is flowing into and out of. Okay. Oil. Just consolidating up at resistance there. Would make sense for it to start to pull back. We got a red day yesterday. So far, just going sideways. So the significant point here would be if prices were to come down below that wide range bar. And that's one of the ways that we raise stops in a long position. It could either pivot or we get an range expansion bar that becomes a significant reference point, especially because it's a void in a smaller time frame. Gold. This is an example, nasty drop. Right, last week, I said maybe if it can get through these highs, we have a long, for a day trade, and it couldn't do it. It turned into a topping tail bar. So while the momentum slowed down here after this big drop, it couldn't go up. And now, if it couldn't go up, it's likely to go down. And down to where? Well, look to the left. The way this looks, it looks like, potentially going all the way back down to the lows. So I guess they better pick up those gold and silver commercials on TV that we see almost on a daily basis. Get some people to create some demand. Boy, can you imagine being a broker that sold some guy a big gold position recently and the phones are ringing? What's going on? You said it was going to 3,000. I'm down huge here. Bitcoin trying to make some bottom, right? A lot of Coin and Riot and some of the other, they had a good day, and so we've got a red bar ignored. The trend is still down, and this is another way of reading momentum. Right? Obviously, there was strong momentum to the downside, and then it didn't make a new low. So what we look for is it to actually make a new low, and then begin to turn right away. So this was a lower low to that low, but it didn't break this low. Now this one did. And if you remember last week, I said this is a terrible place to be shorting this type of a pattern, because this is often where it begins to stabilize and momentum slows. Now, when that bar formed, it looked like it was going to head lower, and it didn't. So in part, this will bring in some buyers, of course, that are bullish on Bitcoin. And it will also, I want to use the word force, not necessarily force, but it will motivate shorts to buy to cover because they see it's not going down, especially ones that got in here. And now this has a little minor void, which you can see on the hourly time frame. So this has the potential to move up, and those stocks related that move with this should have the potential to move up today. So that's a focal point for today. And I think that's about it. I'm going to look at the VIX here. So it just keeps being a sloppy mess, making lower lows. How low can it go? Well, historically, I mean, I've seen it down at 10, and I don't know, got that reversal. It's like the markets, and no information there of any real value. But I got a couple of bottoming tail bars there. So, this is just another way of using your software to keep an eye on things for you, because I'm not going to watch this. But if I see this going up, and I see, other things that I set alert on, into market information that can give me a heads up to things that I'm not watching, that's a good way to using your software. All right, Dan. All yours, my friend.
All right, good morning. Yeah, on Bitcoin, I think there were a couple things moving it yesterday, which I didn't know about till after. And that's kind of actually a good reason. It's not bad following the news because we obviously see the charts. So we see what's going on. But, the news sometimes, if it confirms your bias, can get you a little bit more aggressive. So we already know there's a bullish bottoming pattern here. And so I saw on the news after the market that the ARC lady, Kathy Woods, is going to she's in the process, she filed papers to come up with a new ARC B for Bitcoin. So that's just guaranteed to attract excitement for the cult, the Bitcoin cult. They just love hearing good news about their instrument. And then secondly, I just saw in the paper that Mexico's doing something about endorsing Bitcoin and accepting it. So we started noticing this yesterday in coin, COIN. We sold a put spread on it, but in the morning I said if it closes strong, we were going to give a directional, because it looks like a long-term bottom to me. Look at that. Let's see, that's a very good volume bar. The volume on confirming with a big something igniting bar. So unfortunately, it's gapping up here. I was hoping that I would love to get a 1, 2, 3. Do you remember who was it in the green room yesterday? You said, Dan, so we're going to wait for a 1, 2, 3. And I said, no, you can buy the high because you might not get the luxury of a 1, 2, 3. So now it's not even giving us the luxury of buying over yesterday's high. So you gotta, what time frame are you trading? If it's a core trade, just buy a half lot. Just buy it. Your stop's yesterday's low, and then look to add on it. Yeah, we entered Riot yesterday. We bought the stock and also sold a put spread. Look, that is a beautiful, beautiful pre-market right there. That gapped up, wide range bar, bullish consolidation. That might even be a day trade to 40, 41. That's beautiful right there. Yeah, Mara, sister company, Square is in the space. And then Mr. has like, I forget, they got a ton of Bitcoin. When I was reading in Barron's, like they of any other private company, they have the most. Uh, John Williams asking about Google put spread. Yeah, we already have that posted over the highs. Whether we enter a little early, we'll play it by ear. But over the highs, yes. Tesla, if it can take out, particularly because it's gapping down today. If it can take out yesterday's high, that's a 180 reversal continuation pattern. So I like that as a put spread, and they're juicy. They are Baidu, Neo. Baidu long? That has to be a typo, unless you need to come spend some time with us in the green room. I mean, that's up 8 bars with a doji bar, slowing momentum, topping tail, gapping down. I got big fat zero interest in that. Neo, yep, that's a wide range igniting. So here's kind of another example. This would be a beautiful 1, 2, 3. It's actually gapping down a few pennies. This would be a good 30-minute high to take half because the bigger time frames have a void. So I like that a lot. I'm going to put that in a window. So yes on Neo. And Thomas asking about bots. Yeah, I said the same thing on this one in the green room. Wide range igniting, it's gapping up a little bit. Yeah, it's in here somewhere in my watch list. But yeah, box, same kind of thing. That's a beautiful multi-week consolidation. Looks good. Let's see CFLT. Wow, recent IPO is on fire. Still in an uptrend on the 15-minute chart. Not a swing pattern, but if you're day trading, looks higher, looks strong. TXT was a sell setup, and now it's gapping over it. So it's a failed sell setup, but it's the resistance and no interest. AMC, it's a bullish pre-market over yesterday's high, holding well. If it can take out a 30-minute high, it might be a put spread idea. FSL, no pattern yet, but this is one. I actually was watching this as a core trade right here on this igniting bar, but it had earnings, so we stayed away from it. But it's a potential bottoming pattern, daily, weekly, monthly, but it might take a week or two to set up, which is totally fine. Grub here. This is what happened to Grub. I mean, it used to be a high flyer, and now it looks like it's spun off into a SPAC. And this tail is wigging out my data, but that might be a gap breakout. NCTY, similar to that other one where I said a potential bottoming pattern, daily, weekly, monthly. It's gapping up here. I like I said on the other one, I prefer it to take a week or so to set up better. All right, oil here. Yeah, oil had a weekday, so a little WRB at resistance. So XOP under yesterday's low would be a call spread candidate. XLE is weaker. This might be a good example for our relative strength on tomorrow. Two related sectors. You can see how different they are. So that this one's weaker because it couldn't get back up to the advance. And then this retracement was deeper also. So yeah, that's a good example. I'll grab those charts later. 470. I don't know. We can find better. Yeah, Matul, if you gotta please give me a question. We've talked about it already, and I've answered. I like it over all the highs put spread, whether we enter early or not. We'll play it by ear. XPO announced a secondary offering, but that got whacked yesterday. So I don't know if they knew about it yesterday or earnings or whatever the case. Wow, EPAC. That's a crazy big gap. CVNA had earnings, no pattern. All the banks are coming out. Greg, these gaps are going to mess up XLF now. That's a big gap right there on Morgan. As Barron's predicted a week or so ago, the stress test was last Thursday. They passed with flying colors. And then they said, oh, well, then, they're going to start boosting dividends and buybacks and all that nonsense. No pattern on Morgan, but there might, if somebody wants to scan, if someone wants to scan banks, I don't know if there's anyone that, Goldman, that's bullish. It's gapping over this red bar and now has a price void. So Goldman looks higher. Citigroup's
NASDAQ coming down hard.
Look at our little riot here. Look at that. Look at that beautiful pre-market I said. All right, we like I said, we have two positions. So we bought yesterday 36.